Alright, what is up you guys? My name is Jovani and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about the LS3 motor and why you don't necessarily need one if you're planning on doing a LS swap or an LS build. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so right here on this hoist we have ourselves an LS3. An LS3 is a 6.2 liter all aluminum block LS engine. The reason I have this LS3 is because I had a client ask me if I could kind of throw it together for him. I managed to throw this engine together in about 3 days. I didn't have to tear the motor apart or anything. All I really did was add this Holley mid-mount system, some headers, change the oil pan, and a couple other things. But you guys might be thinking, why would you not want this motor? And I'm not saying that you don't want it. What I'm saying is for the price that you're gonna pay for one of these motors, there's a lot of better options for you. Unless you have no budget and you can just go carte blanche on your build, there are definitely some better options for you. This motor and transmission, the client told me he paid $7,000 for the complete pullout, which isn't too bad of a deal for an LS3. It was actually out of a 2017 Chevrolet SS, or Holden Commodore if you're in Australia. So $7,000 for the complete engine and transmission pullout, not a terrible price. These motors sell, I think you can get a long block LS3 for about $3,500. So, you know, for the complete motor and transmission, it's not too bad of a price. But what are you getting for $7,000? What you're getting is one of GM's more refined, some will say even one of the best variants of the LS. These heads flow incredibly well. They are rectangular port heads. They flow upwards of 300 CFM. They are a really good head. This engine altogether just flows really well. If you were gonna do an NA build, you definitely would consider getting an LS3. However, for the price, I just cannot justify getting one of these. You won't probably ever see one of these in my garage that's owned by me, only because of the price. Between the LS1, LS2, and LS3, all of them have about close to a 10-year gap between them. The LS1 came out first in the late 90s, and then the LS2 came around mid-2000s, and then this guy wasn't available until late 2000s, I want to say. There's definitely been some major improvement on the engine design itself. Major improvements on the DOD or displacement on demand. And this engine is altogether just a more refined, sophisticated motor than the LS1 or LS2. And that's part of why it costs so much more than the other motors. It's because it's so new and such a recent motor that there's not really a devaluation period yet for this motor. This motor will be going into a, I believe, 60 Impala, which, you know, is a pretty heavy car. It's a big, long car. NA, this motor will definitely be a major improvement over anything that the Impala came with, whether it be a big block, small block, whatever. It's just been proven that these LS motors get better gas mileage, better tunability, better horsepower, better torque than all the old Gen 1 motors. Now, one of the reasons why you might want to go with a older LS1 style or LS2 engine would be cable throttle body. This LS3, it's only going to be available with a electronic throttle body. The ECUs that come with these motors, this one is an E38. You're not going to have any opportunity to install a cable throttle body. It requires a electric throttle body in order to function and run like it should. The other reason, besides the price and besides the electric throttle body, is just the performance output itself. I believe these motors are rated stock maybe 400, 350 to 400, maybe more. I'm not sure, I'm not gonna look it up either. But what you're getting for $7,000 is what you can build for, I would say, even $2,000 or $3,000. So what are your options when you're looking at LS motors? This LS3 motor, I would say, is a pipe dream for any build. It's a really nice motor. It's very advanced, very capable for what it is, but it's not the perfect engine, so to say, for your build. First off, $7,000, that would blow any of my car build budgets just out the roof. I would even say that getting an LS2 or LS1 for any of my cars, probably not worth it either. If you guys have watched this channel, you guys know I am a particular fan of the LS truck motors. Technically not LS, but you know, whatever you want to call them, the Vortech motors. They are what I would say a way better option for any build that you're doing. There are some that are completely aluminum block, aluminum head if you're worried about weight, but the difference between the iron block and aluminum block engines is minimal at best. And if you're replacing an older Gen 1 small block engine, you're improving on weight anyway. So the difference is negligible at best. If I was gonna be doing this build, let's say I was building a 60 Impala, I have a 65 Chevelle in the back there. Not the same body, not the same frame, but very similar cars and similar era. Depending on if I wanted to stay NA or go forced induction, if I wanted to be NA, I would go with a 6.0 Vortech motor, either an LQ4 or LQ9 motor. Those are the 6.0 motors, those are the big truck motors, 4-inch bore, lots of horsepower, lots of torque, and easily buildable. You gotta remember that all these LS motors carry parts interchangeability with them. So whatever cam I can throw into this motor, I can throw into that truck motor. Whatever intake I want with some caution thrown there, I can put on my truck motor. Any heads I want, I can put on my truck motor. So really, what you're getting in this package is you're getting a really nice advanced motor. And this motor is actually pretty much brand new. It's only 2 years old. You're gonna have a hard time finding a newer truck motor for this price. If you were to find apples to apples a 2017 truck motor, it would still come in less than this guy was. And you're not sacrificing a lot in terms of reliability, horsepower, torque, anything like that. Now, one of the advantages over these LS3 motors versus a truck motor is the intake height. Now, if space is a constraint to you, definitely look into the car motors. This, as you can see, this intake does sit very flush with the top of the motor. The truck motors, they sit quite a bit higher. So if that hood clearance is an issue, you're definitely gonna wanna look into that. But just remember that an LS1 intake will fit on a 534-860 motor, no problem. All you have to do is change the front accessory drive. And there are ways to get around that, but I'm not gonna get into that today. So another thing a lot of people don't think about when thinking about what motor they want for their build is availability of parts and support. This motor, since it's so new, there is quite a bit of aftermarket following for this, but you're not gonna have all the options you get with any of the older motors that have had 10, 20 years of aftermarket support and development. Of course, it is an LS, so there is interchangeability. As you see on the front here, this is a Holley mid-mount serpentine system. So basically what this does is it moves all your alternator, power steering, everything way closer together to the middle to fit in a car. I honestly don't think this is gonna be an issue on that Impala, and I don't think this was necessary. But hey, it's not my money, it's not my build. I have nothing to say about that. So hitting on the note of aftermarket support, one of the big things on these motors is how are you gonna control it? There is huge support for the LS1, LS2 older style ECUs. There is large support for this E39 ECU as well, but you gotta realize that people have been tuning these computers for more than 10 years. This computer, of course, you're gonna run into some issues. So another thing is this motor bolts straight up to a 6L80E transmission, which is a 4L80E transmission with 2 extra overdrive gears. One of the biggest issues I've come across is finding support for that transmission. You're basically limited to running the stock ECU to support that transmission and make it function the way it would in a stock vehicle, or paying ridiculous amounts for an aftermarket TCU, such as a fast, easy TCU or any of those guys. There just hasn't been enough time to get the dedicated support on this 6-speed transmission. Great part is this engine will also bolt straight up to a 4L80, which has tons of aftermarket and DIY open source capability to run and manage that transmission. So as we know, this motor was $7,000. So let me go ahead and show you guys a more reasonable option if you're looking at LS swapping any of your rides. All right, so this is a 5.3 liter Vortech motor. I would say it's probably a Gen 3 motor. It was about a 2004, 2005 motor. This motor I picked up complete. There's the intake right there. Wiring harness is all over the floor right now. But I picked up this motor complete for $500. One of the things about buying these motors is you never know its life history. You don't know what happened to it, what's been changed on it, how hard it's been run, etc., etc. What I do know from the owner, and we'll take this with a grain of salt, is that this motor had roughly 130,000 miles on it. It was pulled out of a wrecked vehicle, Silverado, Sierra, whatever it was. And to me, it looks pretty much primarily stock. I don't see any telltale signs of modifications or anything like that. It was probably just a workhorse. So as you can see, this motor is very similar to this motor over here. If I were to slap all the accessories and everything onto this motor, you almost wouldn't be able to tell the difference. between the two besides, you know, the intake and whatnot. So you have to remember that these motors were the building block to get to where we are now with the LS3. You can see that it has cathedral port heads. That one has rectangular port heads. Altogether, the LS3 motor just flows a lot better. Some will argue that this cathedral port design is a lot better than the rectangular port, but facts are facts. That LS3 motor does flow a lot more than this motor does. Now, one thing to be aware of on these motors is the 5.3 does share the exact same block as a 4.8 motor. And you can tell that by looking right there. I don't know if you can see it, but it says 4.8/5.3. Now, that could be an issue for you. If you're trying to build an NA car, obviously you want to start off with the highest displacement that you can. So you're gonna want to find hardcore proof that this is a 5.3. I was told this is a 5.3. I haven't verified that yet. Really, the only way you can verify it is by looking down the spark plug holes to see if the motor is a flat top piston or if it's dished. If it's dished, it's gonna be a 5.3. If it's a flat top, it's gonna be a 4.8. If you look over here, this is a 4.8 motor. You can see the pistons, they're flat, there's no indentation in there, there's no dish. This is a 4.8 motor. Unless someone went in here and put flat top pistons, guaranteed this is a 4.8 motor. And I'm 100% certain that's a 4.8 because, you know, I bought it as a 4.8. This guy, you know, we'll take the heads off of it in another video and we'll see if it's a 5.3 or not and see if I got a good deal or not. $500 for a 5.3 isn't a bad deal at all. Complete wiring harness and everything, ECU. I'd say that was a pretty great deal. If it was a 4.8, it's still not a bad deal. I bought this block itself for $200. Might have paid a little bit too much for it because as you can see, losing some ringland right there. But whatever, $200, not that bad for a good running block. So if you're wondering what motor you should run, you know, I know it's really hard not to want to get an LS3, even an LS2, even an LS1. If you have the money for it, I am not trying to sway you from getting one. I would love to have one, but I'm not gonna pay $7,000 for a motor. The great thing about LS's is you have tons of options. If you have money, you can always get a great dropout motor like the one I have behind me. You can even get an LSX block, a 427 block, a 454 block, etc., etc. There's tons of aftermarket blocks for these blueprint blocks. But if you're on a budget, if you're trying to get your car running on the least amount of money possible, definitely consider getting a truck motor. A 5.3, 4.8, 6.0, it really doesn't matter. A 4.8 can be made to run just as hard as a 5.3. A 5.3 can be made to have as much horsepower as a 6.0. 6.0 can outrun a 6.2. It just goes on and on. For $7,000 for just an NA motor, I can build this 5.3 to be 1,000 horsepower, outrun basically any LS3 car. I can do so much. I can even do that with the 4.8 motor. So it's really about what you want to do, what's best for your build. I'm a turbo guy. If you guys haven't, go check out my other videos. I have my 54 Chevy pickup, twin turbo, 4.8. This motor I actually purchased to replace the 4.8 that's in there that's starting to knock a little bit. And you know, that's probably the best part about buying cheaper motors is that I can buy 20 of these motors for the price that I would get one LS3 for. So, you know, if I blow one up, I'm not too worried about it. It's not a big deal. I can just buy another one like I did. So now I got two 4.8s and possibly a 5.3. I can always rebuild them, put them in other cars, whatever. So I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I know it was a little bit of a ramble, but if you guys are considering doing an LS swap, definitely think about your options, think about your budget. And if you guys have questions, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. Ask me what motor you should get. You know, my opinion is not the end all be all. Other guys will argue that you have to have an LS3, you have to have an LS2, you have to have a 6.0, but whatever. You know, I'm open to all opinions. Whatever you guys want to do, it's your build, but I'm just giving you some insightful feedback on what you guys should think about when purchasing an LS motor. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and click that subscribe button, follow me on Instagram. Yeah, that's it for today, guys. I'll see you again next time.